Welcome into the best in paranormal programming. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Have a good show lined up for you here today, folks. I ran across a movie that I wanted to sit down and talk with one of its creators over. It's called The Harrisville Haunting, The Real Conjuring House. Now, as you folks know, we have a couple of friends that are in that haunting. Andrea Perron is one of our good friends, as are Keith and Carl Johnson, who were involved in the initial part of that haunting. Also, Andrea's dad, Roger Perron, is a good friend of our show as well. And I saw that this movie was out there. And so I reached out to Joe Vitale, who is one of the investigators in this movie, and told him that I wanted to have him on the show. And so I sat down. The movie is available in a lot of different places. I got a hold of it on Prime Video. I'm a Prime Video member. And got to sit down and watch it for free. I told you on the show yesterday, get a hold of this movie on different sources. You could get it on Apple TV. You could get it on Tubi, Prime Video. I got it, as I said, on Prime Video. I found it extremely entertaining and from a lot of different aspects. And we'll go over those aspects with Joe when we bring him in here now. Let's go over Joe here a little bit. He's a paranormal investigator with Entity 7. He's a musician, a producer, and a filmmaker at Gravitas Movies, and he's also a good friend of Matt Benton, who's the other producer, director, and filmmaker on this project, which the movie, by the way, is called I think I said it already, The Harrisville Haunting, The Real Conjuring House, which is where you can find it. The concept of the movie: 4 paranormal researchers and YouTubers document the paranormal claims of the Harrisville Farmhouse, the inspiration for the well-known movie The Conjuring. And they tease it on IMDb as, is it truly haunted? I'll tell you this much, folks, it's truly haunted. It's brought out in the movie. Let's bring into Darkness Radio right now, Joe Vitale. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Very good, my friend. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I truly enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed it for many reasons, but I'm going to throw it out there first. The main reason I enjoyed this movie is that you guys are very, very meticulous and skeptical of your evidence. And you go over it many, many times. Even when you have an experience, it's not a jump moment. Every moment isn't a jump moment. You have the experience and you review it right away. And the first thing you want to do is say, okay, how did that happen? And you want to review it right away. You want to get down to the nitty gritty. Even though it happened, there's the, oh my gosh, it happened. You're startled. But at the same time, you want to try and recreate it. And I love that. I love the fact that you're collected. Tell me, where does that sense of being collected come from?
Being a paranormal investigator, you want to go out there, you want to investigate the claims. You do want to try to have those experiences, but at the same time, you need to be grounded. Debunking is very, very important. You just can't go into a place and you have something happen and then be like, oh, it's a ghost, and just leave it at that. No, got to find out what's going on. You got to figure out why something had happened before we can even think paranormal, because there's a lot of things that do go on that are absolutely normal. They may seem bizarre or strange to us when it happens, but there's a lot of strange things that do happen in general that are just completely normal in nature. So I have been investigating 30 years on and off, and you learn a lot. Experience definitely it's important to have that experience. I'm not one, like, if something happens, I don't run from it. I'm curious. I want to know what happened here. I need to be able to explain it. We need to explain it. So in the documentary, when we had something happen, what happened? How did this happen? And we tried debunking what had happened. I don't want to give anything away, but we tried to debunk what had happened, and we couldn't do it. Now, the event that happened, for a lot of people, they will say, that's it. Really? As an investigator, that's important. That's substantial, what had happened. We don't know why it happened, but it happened. So I think too, people also need to understand that something may not seem big, but it is substantial. Anything like that happens, like it did in the documentary, that's big.
Well, if I can be fair here for a moment, Joe, I really want to be fair with this. I think you guys had more quote unquote evidence in this movie than you get in most 2-hour sessions or 2-hour specials in most television shows. Because there's a lot of buildup to so-called evidence on a lot of TV shows. And you might get 1 or 2 pieces of quote unquote evidence on a television show. And I'm not knocking any TV shows here. Don't get me wrong. But if they do get a key piece of quote unquote evidence, if something moves, if you see a shadow, if you see something or you get an EVP, boy, do they lead up to it and they just air the crap out of it on TV, and you hear it and you hear it again and you hear it again and you hear it again and you hear it again. And it stretches out over 2 segments. Right?
Right.
Which is about 22 minutes of an hour show. They really work that piece of evidence over 2 segments. To be fair, over 2 hours of this documentary, you are chock-a-block full of that evidence. And this is quite an active site when you're talking about that type of evidence. I wouldn't discount this movie at all when it comes to, if you're a paranormal investigator and you know exactly what type of evidence you get on a haunted site, this is not a movie lacking in evidence at all. I don't think so. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. We did capture, so we did have things happen off camera as well as on camera that did not make it into the documentary. Mm-hmm. It just didn't translate well. Going into a documentary example, we did interviews, and while we were doing an interview, mm-hmm. I heard a child at first, and I'm like, what was that? And then not long later, Matt and I both, we were standing next to each other. We heard a woman. I don't know what she was saying, but we clearly heard a woman. And we stopped the interview. It was captured. The problem was it wasn't loud enough.
Okay.
There was no way that we could actually bring it out so people could actually hear it clear. The second, because we went back a second time, we wanted to get more B-roll footage, and there was some other debunking that we wanted to do. We also wanted to show when this certain event happened, we wanted to show exactly how far away everyone was. We busted out the tape measure, like we did everything we could,
sure,
to show, this wasn't caused by any of us. Captured another EVP, and I was probably there 15 minutes getting B-roll, mm-hmm. and Matt comes walking in, and I'm like, Matt, like, because he was walking heavy, mm-hmm. Like kind of on purpose, and I'm like, Matt, quit walking like that, or whatever I said. And you can hear Matt say something about, oh, they got another Ouija board here. And then something responds to Matt, which, we didn't hear at the time. It wasn't until went back and listened, and we're like, holy crap, we captured something, but we didn't put it in there.
Yeah.
Again, it wouldn't translate well. But yeah, people will also ask me, well, how did you feel being in the house? I was comfortable, absolutely comfortable.
I want to talk a little bit about that real quick, Joe. But I want to rewind first a little bit. What made you and Matt? Because essentially, you and Matt are the main producers of and the main cinematographers on the show or on the documentary. What made you decide this location? Why the Conjuring house? What was it about the farm that made you decide, we want to go in, take an honest look at this house and the honest history of the house and find out what exactly makes this house so incredibly terrifying to people who go into it.
So it's always been on my bucket list, but I never thought I would ever go there. Um, I I'll admit, opportunity. There was the opportunity. At that time, Jennifer and Corey, they own the house and they open it up to investigate. So that was the opportunity. So it was funny. I was on the phone with somebody and I get a message from a friend, Joe, telling me I'm going to be investigating the Conjuring house. I'm like, that can't be the right house. Like, are you sure? The right house? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keith and Carl, they're going to be there too. I'm like, huh. So I said to the person I was on the phone with, I'm like, I want to film there. I want to do a documentary there. No joke. Matt, he calls up. Now I'm on a 3-way phone call and he wants to do the same thing. Let's do it. He actually wanted to bring in his team to film, but unfortunately they weren't able to make it work and other things going on. So we've heard the stories. Now, I basically grew up on Ed and Lorraine Warren and Hans Holder and a few others. So I was very familiar with the house. I was very familiar. I also knew the facts versus some of the made up stuff. I'll just say it like that. Some of the made up stuff about things that have happened in the house or in the past, things like that. Mm-hmm. And so I knew the story of Bathsheba Sherman. That was not accurate at all. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Lorraine Warren, I got a lot of respect for them, and I don't want to speak ill of them, but they definitely were not like the heroes that the Conjuring movie had made them out to be, and I'm not knocking them. People find out in the documentary, what actually happened. But no, we were like, we have this opportunity. We have this opportunity to go out there and get the truth out there. So that's what we did.
I am glad that you guys brought Carl and Keith in, and that there's kind of this kismet that they were going to be there, because we covered it years ago, the role that Carl and Keith had in this case. But I'm glad that you brought it on to film. That they're caught on celluloid for all time, and their role in this, because it really was important. That what their role is in this case, and the fact that they did bring it forward and they brought it to Ed and Lorraine's attention. And I'll leave it for the film. And again, we have it in our archives as well, what their role was, and that they continue to be associated with this house. I think it's important that people know that what their role is in this house. Yeah. And it was refreshing. I'm just saying, it was refreshing to see them in this movie, and that they are well versed, and that they were there to kind of, for lack of a better term, to give you guys the information too, as to the lowdown as to every nook and cranny of the house, which comes in handy for your team later on in the movie. Now, let's get down to exactly who feels comfortable and who doesn't in the house. I know you tend to be a very grounded, somewhat skeptical, or you could say fairly skeptical investigator. Now, you have 4 main investigators in the house for the movie, correct?
Yes.
You have Matt Benton, yourself, and you've got 2 others in the house. You have Eric Connor, who also is an investigator, and was it Bill Cook was the other?
Yes.
The other investigator? Yes. Okay. So, and Eric tends to be a little more open, as I remember.
He's a full-on believer. Billy, he's grounded as well too. There's a lot of similarities with Billy and I. Matt, he's very skeptical. Matt and I we have a lot of similarities as well.
Okay.
Honestly, we brought Eric in. Well, first up, we love Eric. Eric's great. He's high energy. He's a lot of fun. I've investigated with Eric in the past, and it is a good time. It's always fun. We honestly thought that Eric, because he tends to get a lot of activity around him, we brought him in because we thought he would be the one to have most of the experiences. And as it turned out, without giving things away, that's not what happened. So we were surprised. Billy, he's a great guy, great interviewer. He's a lot of fun to investigate with as well. That was actually the first time that I investigated with Bill. I met him before at an event, and then I don't know, we just kind of hit it off. It was a lot of fun. He was with his wife as well. She was really cool. It was a lot of fun. In fact, it was funny. Before this event, they wanted to go up to a store, a Walmart. So I went with them, and we walk in, and the fire alarms are going off. I'm like, we are so hot, we set off the fire alarms, you know. But yeah, no, it the whole thing. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that we had the people that we had there.
Tell me a little bit about Jennifer and Corey Heinzen, who now own the Conjuring house. Do you feel like owning this house for them is a chore? Do they run into a lot of activity themselves, or is this something where they get along with the spirits in the house and things are kind of chill and real cool with them?
So they decided to sell the house. So now the house is owned by somebody else. I'm sure they love the house. I'm sure that they love that house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they were prepared for like the craziness and the popularity in the house. I don't know if they were like fully prepared for that. I'm sure they got used to it. I mean, when I was in the house, I'm like, oh, this is expensive to maintain.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the windows, for example, they're just, I think they're the original freaking windows. I'm not sure. And then the way the floors are, you know, it's wood floor. There's no subfloor, nothing. So you could literally, if you were to look up to the ceiling, you can see through the cracks the upstairs. Same thing if you look down on the floor, you could see into the basement.
Oh wow.
So heating that place, trying to cool that place, I mean, it probably cost them a fortune, I'm sure. They're great people though. Corey and I, like, we had something in common. We both play guitar, you know.
Oh wow.
I talked to him for like 45 minutes, just guitar talk, you know. Mm-hmm. Jennifer, she's a sweetheart. I wish we could have interviewed her. She just didn't want to be on camera at that time for whatever reason. But I'm willing to bet that it was probably stressful. I know they worked hard on the place, but overall, I guess, and then this was something that they had put out there, so it's nothing that I'm giving away here. But you know, Corey's health. They were concerned about Corey's health. Not that it had anything to do with the house, but just everything that, you know, going on. Mm-hmm. I think probably caused some, you know, a lot of stress or whatever like that. And unfortunately, you know, they had to sell it, but it's in good hands right now.
One of the things that impressed me the most, just watching the film, is the state-of-the-art DVR system that Corey had in that house to cover almost all bases of that house, to document the different things that would go on in that house. Tell me what your first impression is, Joe, when you see the state-of-the-art DVR system that covers all areas of the house as an investigator, and then personally what you're thinking when you see, I mean, you've brought all this equipment up there to try and capture what you're going to capture, and then you see Corey's got all bases covered with a DVR system. What's your first thought?
Thank God. Thank God. I think all locations should have that, mm-hmm. and give access to that to the investigators. You know, if they want to pull footage from it or whatever, you know, they can do that. It was definitely a blessing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm just battling a cold here. The weather's been crazy. So yeah, it was seeing it, I'm like, oh yes. Though we were like, oh man, wish we had it sound, but I can't complain. The video
No.
quality was great. Um, it was very helpful.
Mhm.
I I'll kind of give a tad bit of a spoiler here. Here
Sure.
he has this expensive DVR system working perfectly.
Mhm.
I went outside to grab some stuff from my car. I come back in. I experience something. The following day, we go to look at it on the DVR, and conveniently, just before I walk in, that camera goes down, glitches, skipping time.
Yeah, I
I'm
remember
like,
that. Yeah.
you got to be kidding me. So, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that did happen, but we did put it in the documentary. Um, I'm not gonna sit here and say I 100% know I experience something, because you never know.
Hmm.
You never know. But I, I believe I did, but I'm not saying with certainty. But just a little convenient on the timing with that. That was really weird.
But, after watching the movie, which, by the way, we are talking about the movie, the Harrisville Haunting, the Real Conjuring House, which is available right now on different outlets like Apple TV, Prime Video, and Tubi. You can watch it right now. The reason why I think your experience might have been kind of wiped off that DVR conveniently, we'll put it that way, in little quotes, and what could have been a little devilish spirit, if you will, Joe, is because, and again, without giving too much away about the movie, maybe the spirits are focused on one particular person, and they're wanting to outline what they're trying to do to this particular person. And the experience that was done to you might have been for your benefit, or for, to change maybe your, how should I put it, your frame of mind at the time. Because if you remember where you were at that point in the movie, you seemed a little frustrated by things that were going on, yet you were still debunking. You were heavily debunking everything that was happening to you at that point in the movie, if you remember right.
Right. So I was a little frustrated, only because, well, Matt and I drove out there. Matt actually came down to my place, and we probably got, if we were lucky, maybe 4 hours of sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and drove 13 hours. And we were up. I mean, we were up all night. So I was tired, and I was a little cranky, getting
Mm-hmm.
the old man crankies. But also at the same time, we don't know what's going to happen. And I was hoping something significant would happen. Because we plan on making a documentary, and we have to have something. There has
Sure.
to be some sort of payoff. Because if we go in and we don't capture anything, then who's going to want to watch that? And that's unfortunate. That's just how it is. When people watch anything paranormal, there has to be that payoff. Something has to happen.
Absolutely.
So I was a little frustrated by that, but I was also tired.
Oh, sure. Sure. Well, speaking of that, let's ask this question, because I think, it's different with, television shows. They take us 6-7 days to film what you see in an hour or even 2 hours. You guys only had 2 days and 2 nights, correct? To film all this?
Yep. So, we had, we stayed 2 days. That was it. I know there's another documentary out there. It's a great documentary. They were there for 2 weeks. And it's a great documentary, but they really didn't capture much of anything. Little things here and there, which is fine, because I mean that's just the way it works.
So
I know.
So when do you rest? When do you sleep, or do you not? Do you hit that whole 48 hours with no sleep?
I would say that all of us probably got a total of 6 to 8 hours of sleep the whole time that we were there.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we were running on fumes, and the timing was just not good. Something that we did keep out of the documentary is when the country got shut down. The day we got there, that night, boom, everything shutting down.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like the timing on that. But we ended up, we didn't put any of that whole thing in there.
So this was right at the beginning of COVID.
Yep. Everything was getting shut down. And that limited us too, because we did want to speak to historians and do some other things, but we couldn't. Everything was on lockdown.
So is this why, and our friend Andrea Perron's in the movie, is this why you're speaking to her via Zoom?
No, because I think she was in Florida.
Okay.
When Matt spoke to her.
Yeah.
So it was a distance thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Well, that's very interesting. And I know you went back sometime in the movie. I mean, this isn't a big secret, but you do go back again, kind of to recheck your evidence, which I commend you on. You do you check and recheck your evidence to make sure that what you had was a true experience. But there was some time in there, and I guess I wasn't wrapping my head around the fact why you went back so late to go recheck the evidence. Now I know. Now it didn't dawn on me when that first date came up that of course was the beginning of COVID. I get it now. Okay.
Well, we actually didn't plan on going back, to be honest. But a friend of ours, he went back and he invited us back, and we're like, okay, it's the Conjuring house. Yeah. But it did. It gave us an opportunity to go back and try to debunk some things. And it gave us time to film more B-roll footage. We thought we shot enough B-roll footage, and as it turned out, we did not.
Oh, okay.
So we ended up getting more B-roll footage. And, there was something that did happen. It was funny, though, because I was actually sleeping when it happened, and Matt's like, Joe, something paranormal just happened. Like, I don't care, I'm sleeping. Like I said, we do everything that we can to try to get it right and make sure that whatever it is that we've captured is legit. It's always going to be questionable. It's never going to be bulletproof. There's always going to be those little I guess openings where, well, maybe it could have been this, or maybe it could have been that. And that's just the way it is. Now, when we did have an event there when we premiered the documentary, and we also allowed certain individuals to investigate.
Oh,
and we asked these individuals, make this happen. Do whatever you can without touching it to make what you've seen happen. There's like 8 people in that room trying to make this happen.
Okay.
They could not do it. They absolutely could not do it. And one guy looked over at me and said, that just made this a lot realer. I know, we couldn't either.
Yeah.
We could not recreate it.
Yeah. Well, after reviewing it, and when you guys see the movie, you'll see what he's talking about. It's pretty impressive. And the fact that you go back into this one room and try to recreate it twice is pretty impressive. Let's take our break right here. The Harrisville Haunting, The Real Conjuring House is the name of the movie. Again, you can check it out on Apple TV, on Prime Video, on Tubi, all those outlets. You're available to see it free right now. I believe there's some other outlets as well, Joe. Where else can you see the movie right now?
Flex and Tubi are the two that I know you can see for free right now.
Okay. All right.
Just have to deal with the ads.
Okay. When we come back, I want to talk to Joe about some of the do's and don'ts on an investigation. There are a couple that spring up to me, and I know we talked about one before the show, Joe, that we'll get into. And one that kind of stuck in my craw, and I went, what is he doing that for? I'm not going to name the person, but we'll talk about the scene in the movie. And kind of go back and forth about it and discuss why this even happened. I know I'm talking in circles here, folks, but bear with me. We'll get to it when we get back from the break. We'll talk about do's and don'ts on an investigation and why you would do certain things. Now, I'm going to try to do this spoiler-free, Joe, because there's a few scenes in the movie that absolutely I was dumbfounded by. So I've got to get this out of my system while I have you here. Do's and don'ts on an investigation with Joe Vitale, our guest. Again, the Harrisville haunting, the real Conjuring house. When we come back right here on the best in paranormal podcasting, this is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Our guest is Joe Vitale. He is a filmmaker, co-writer, co-producer, co-extraordinaire director, cinematographer, you name it, of the Harrisville haunting, the real Conjuring house. Again, an excellent movie. It's out there right now on Amazon Prime, on Apple TV Plus, on Tubi. By gosh, you can find it. I think you said Flex was the other one that it's on, Joe?
Yep.
Okay, so you can find it out there right now. I suggest you look it up. If you're confused as to which outlets it'll be on, look in the description of this program. We'll have links to it there. Also, imdb.com is good at directing you to different outlets that it's on as well. Okay, Joe, I teased it before the break. Do's and don'ts of paranormal investigating, and AKA different scenes in the movie that I kind of shirked at and went, ooh, why are we, not just we, but a particular person in the movie did this. And I went, yeah, why? Let's talk about the first one you and I talked about off the air. A certain person, okay, so you're in the basement of the farmhouse. There's a well in the basement. And the four of you are standing around and three of you go, it's a nice well. We're looking in it. You're doing whatever you're doing. You have, I believe a few of you have recorders. I don't know. Did any of you have a K2 meter or some sort of EMF reader or whatever it was at the time? I'm trying to remember.
Matt had one on him, but he wasn't using it. We had our cameras. We had digital recorders with us.
I think one of you might have had I forget the name of the voice box you were using. The one that uses the reverberation. I forget the version you guys use.
That was probably Eric's. What is it called?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the name.
Gateway.
Oh, Gateway. Is that what it is? Okay.
That's what
Gateway.
I believe what you're referring to.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, because it eventually, it said something. I think it said something, and you guys were looking for a doorway at after the well incident. So you're standing in front of this well, and you're looking at it and going, well, it's kind of a tiny well, and the three of you are looking at it like, well, yeah, it'd be something if we could get in it, but we're not going to get in it because that'd be kind of stupid, right? That's kind of the consensus.
Well, I mean, I'll go ahead and I'll put it out there.
Sure, go ahead.
I think Matt was stepping back, and there's like, whoa, don't fall in there. And Matt, being Matt, what if I go in there? And we're like, probably not a good idea. And I remember, because I tease about this, Bill says, you're going to drop something down there. It's like right then and there. Foreshadowing. Bill's psychic, just joking around. Mm-hmm. Which we didn't actually say that in the documentary, but looking back on it in hindsight, it was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something that was not put in the documentary at that point in time. So yes, Matt was in the well. Matt wanted a digital recorder because he wanted to have a digital recorder in the well. Yes, Matt did go into the well, not all the way in. Half of his body was out of the well. Now, nobody's drinking out of the well. It is a fully functioning, running well, but they're not getting their water from it.
Yeah, I got to think that it's probably a drainage well. It probably has a sump pump in the bottom.
No.
No? It didn't have one? Because that's what it looked like to me. It was barely, we'll put it this way, it was barely big enough in circumference to fit Matt. And Matt's not, he's not a chunky guy at all. He's very thin. So it wasn't a very big well. So to me, it looks like the type of well that's dug in basements to hold a sump pump, but it didn't have one in it.
There was no sub pump.
Okay.
Nothing.
All right.
You can't see it in the documentary, but if you get a good look at it, especially during the day, you can see the bottom of the well.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing there.
So it's not deep. Okay.
Matt wants a digital recorder. Well, he got a digital recorder. So what happened was, and again, this was removed from the documentary. Matt wants a digital recorder. He thought he didn't have one on him. So I go to reach for mine, and my digital recorder's it's expensive. I'm like, I'm going to give him my digital recorder. But he's like, no, I have one. So Matt takes his digital recorder out and drops it down the well. And that digital recorder stayed in the well for about a year.
Oh, no.
And I was like, I am so glad I did not give you my digital recorder. And I had a feeling he was going to drop something. And Bill had already called it. Dude, you're going to drop something.
Oh, God. See, that's
why Matt did that. I honestly don't. Like, Matt is, I tell people all the time, Matt can be tough to handle at times. And he's wants to like do things like extreme and stuff like that. Matt has ADHD. So I don't know. He just decided to do it. I wouldn't have done it. There was no reason for me to do it. But he did it. Now, during our event there, he went almost all the way in the well. He was waist deep in water.
Really?
Yes.
Jeez.
But I don't know. Matt does what Matt does, and no matter what I say to him, Matt's just going to do what he wants to do.
What? Okay, so is there something having to do with the haunted history of the building that he's putting himself in the well? Why put yourself in the well?
Who? I don't know. I'm like probably just trying to show off or something. I don't know. Look how extreme I am. But I love Matt to death, but sometimes it's like, why did you do that?
See that I still, after watching the movie, I'm sitting there going, why is he going in the well? What? Why? I couldn't wrap my head around it.
I don't know. Try working with them. Even now, Joe, I'm sitting here going, I don't get it. I don't know. I don't know what he thought he was going to find. I don't know either.
I don't know.
I think the whole theory of water and such may have been the reason why, because he wanted to try to see if he could get EVPs running water, like rivers and stuff like that, amplifying, which I haven't found anything that would suggest that is actually true, but supposedly gives off energy for spirits to be able to communicate better with or manifest things like that.
Okay, so, but whether you're 6 inches away or a foot or two away at the mouth of the well or in the well, it doesn't matter. You're still going to pick up the energy.
I don't know. You'd definitely have to ask him about that, because even when I, from time to time, when I see that, I'm like, why? Why?
I mean, I'll give him this. We when I was running IWI, the wrestling organization, we were running out of a haunted theater, the Mounds Theater in East St. Paul. And we had a dried out well where they used to have a sump pump that looked similar to that. It was, except for it was a little skinnier and a little deeper. And there was an entity that hung out for some reason around that well. So I get it, but there's a lot of pipes around it. And the idea is that the electromagnetic energy is around that area. Probably that's what we're picking up, right? So I get the idea that flowing water, pipes, electromagnetic energy, that's probably where you're picking up some of that stuff. But nobody was going to get in that well. There's just nobody. In fact, we were encouraging people not to, because we would do things where we'd have the wrestling card and then we'd invite people in to investigate the theater, because supposedly there was a spirit up in the projection booth who was the old projectionist. So we'd take people up into the projection booth. We would investigate on the stage, because they used to have an old live stage. That's where the wrestlers would come up. They come up from the dressing room, up a ramp, off the stage into the ring. It's kind of a neat little setup. It was like your own little wrestling playhouse. But we would take people backstage and down to the basement, because that's where it was. You got the most creepy feeling. But when I saw that, I thought of that basement down in the Mounds Theater, and I thought we would have never let anybody into that well. Just never in a million years. The liability would have been off the charts. Let me bring up another one, and I'm going to be as vague as possible here, Joe, because again, I don't want to bring anything out about the movie. The idea that you would open yourself up to any entity and say, do what you will to me. And I think you know what part of the film I'm talking about.
Yes.
Do what you will to me. I'm offering, and using the word offering, I'm offering myself to you to do whatever you want to me physically to prove that you are here. I'm here to make a documentary. Now, this is said by one of your crew. Gave me the absolute willies, and not in a good way. The number one thing you don't do in an investigation. Making an offering is almost like signing your name in blood to something negative, to say, go ahead and take possession of me and do what you will. When you review that footage, do you get the creeps?
No. There was a lot edited out of that. It was far worse.
Really? It was worse?
Well, what was said was far worse in that moment.
Really? Can you talk about what was worse about that footage?
Oh, it was a challenge. Basically it was provoking. And I know a lot of people say, oh, well, you shouldn't provoke. I'm with that as well. However, there are times when it is appropriate, and I'm not saying that time was appropriate, but there are times when it is appropriate, depending on the situation, depending on the type of haunting. It is not something that I personally would ever do, knowing that there are people who are living in the home, me personally. But if I go to a location and having an understanding of what other people have experienced, and nothing is going on, then it may be, and I know what I'm going to say, most will disagree. And I'll further explain why some of us do that. But we're trying to document something. We're trying to prove something. I know keeping it safe is very important, but sometimes you just have to go places where nobody wants to go to try to document stuff like that. And that is the reason. Sometimes, look, we're trying to prove, we're trying to put out evidence to say, yes, this is real. This is what's going on. if we all just sit there and just play it safe, how far has that really gotten us? But then the same could be said about, provoking or challenging. Well, how far does that, get anybody? We have to do something. When I step back and I look, everything is copy and paste. Everybody is doing the same thing. Almost everybody's thoughts are the same when it comes to the way that they investigate. I always do my best, to be very respectful when I go and I investigate places, but there are just some places where there's something demonic there, and you want to get a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
You want something to happen. Now, I'm not going to defend the person that did that. I understand why he did that, and he made his intentions very clear as to why he was doing it.
Yeah,
we had a talk after that.
I bet.
And you can see a little bit of that talk in the documentary, not the whole talk, but we did have a talk. And like, hey, just because you wanted to come at you and only you doesn't mean it's not going to harm anyone else.
That's right.
When people do that, we have to remember that sometimes to get at people, they will go at people that we know and love,
Mm-hmm.
people who are close to us, and there are things out there that will go by those means of attacking someone just to get to, well, not you specifically, but to somebody who's doing stuff like that. Now, I have grandchildren. I have to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anything to happen to my grandchildren. I don't want anything to happen to the people who I love. It is a risk. I understand why he did that. And like I said, we had a conversation about that.
Yeah, and again, I encourage people to watch this movie so they see exactly what it is we're talking about. But to be fair, and here's the thought behind why exactly you don't do what you do there, and you put it eloquently, Joe. But to add to the point, even if you're a complete skeptic or even a cynic, and you go into a situation like that, and you say, "Well, I'm not getting anything. I'm going to poke the bear." You got to remember, sometimes if you poke the bear and you don't believe the bear is there, it just may turn out the bear is there,
mm-hmm.
and the bear's coming out swinging. Just because you don't believe it exists doesn't mean that it isn't there. And the fact of the matter is that, as you pointed out so eloquently, it's not just going to swing for you once it's uncaged. It's going to swing for anything that moves. And to be so grandiose as to think that you can control it once it's out is so naive.
Right.
And it sets a bad example for other investigators, especially ones that if you're making a documentary that may be new to the game or want to get into the game and are thinking, hey, that guy did it, But you also have to be careful what you ask for, because if you ask for the horns, you're going to get the whole bull,
Exactly. And I agree 100%. I agree.
And we're not going to say what kind of bull showed up, but you're going to have to watch the movie to find out what kind of bull showed up. Because in my opinion, the bull showed up.
Yeah. And, I have done something similar as well at a location. Fully aware of what I was doing, and there were reasons, and it's not something that I do all the time. It's very, very rare for me to buck up like that. Now, I don't want to. I'll say this, but I don't want to go too much into it because it is something that we are looking at doing in a couple of years when it comes to another documentary.
Mm-hmm.
But we also, we do believe. I'll speak. I'll speak mainly for myself.
Sure.
But there is the belief that your intentions, your mindset, along with some other things, can affect the paranormal when you're in a haunted location. So if you have somebody who is afraid and fully believes, then they're going to ultimately end up having a lot of interaction or experiences and getting EVPs and having things happen to them. Whereas, and this is something that I've noticed, and Matt has noticed too, and there are other investigators as well. Matt and I are not afraid.
Mm-hmm.
When we investigate together, we already know nothing's happening. We can go to the most haunted place in the world. Nothing's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Before this documentary, we were going to do another documentary. I was going to film at another location, which we did. And this location was wild. I had been there before. Eric Connor has been there before. I couldn't believe what we captured. I was like, whoa, like unbelievable. Matt and I go there and nothing freaking happens. And then we go to another place. Nothing happens. I'm like, so Matt and I were like, we can't investigate together. So we've kind of noticed with certain individuals that they capture things or experience things, but their mindset plays a part of that. And I also believe too that a lot of it is psychological, that for some reason, I'll just give it an example. Go to a haunted location and you have hundreds or thousands of people who go to this location, and everyone, they may experience something, but they have a good time. Everything is good. But you get a certain individual in there, and for whatever reason, they did not have a good time. Something very bad happened to them. Mm-hmm. And then they immediately, they say demonic. But then you have a mass amount of people saying, oh, they don't know what they're doing. They were afraid. It was probably just saying, hey, I'm here. And it just scared them. It's like, don't blow them off like that. Yeah. There may be something to that.
Yeah.
There may be, not to look down on anyone who has a mental illness, but a lot of people, depression, bipolar, anxiety, along other things. Those are things that may be taken advantage of during an investigation. If something nasty knows that, it can take advantage of that.
Can I ask you this, Joe? Is it a psychological thing, or could it be an energy thing too? Do you believe two people's energies can offset a location if there's not an energetic synergy between the two of them to invite spirits in? If could it work as a repellent? The energy of both investigators, could it repel spirits?
That is a possibility. I know when I investigate with like Eric, mm-hmm. We do get some things, like quite a few EVPs, or have some sort of experience when I investigate with some other people too, kind of the same thing. But if I go by myself, nothing really happens. And I do investigate alone. But if I'm investigating with Matt, nothing really, maybe some things here and there, but nothing substantial. I do believe a lot of it does have to do with the individual themselves, which could lead us into, is there a possibility that we're creating the haunting? Are we the ones responsible for the hauntings?
Maybe your original idea was correct all along. Maybe Eric was the conduit to help bring about the haunting, or a stronger haunting, while you were there. Maybe because it seems like, and again, without giving away too much about the movie, it seems like he was kind of the bright, shiny beacon in the movie without being the bright, shiny beacon. Do you know what I'm saying?
And yeah, and that may very well be. I wish I had an answer. I really do. All we can do is have, theories, speculation, and whatnot. I don't know, but it is something that that is worth looking into further.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, I tell you, this movie is intriguing. It's interesting. It'll, I tell you, it'll have you asking some questions at the end of it as well that it may even make you ask questions about a follow-up. The Harrisville Haunting, the real Conjuring house, is out there and available now in different outlets. It's available on Amazon Prime. It's available on Apple TV. It's also available on Tubi and on Flex. And I encourage you to go out there and watch it. Of course, some of our friends out there are on it. Corey and Jennifer Heinzen, Keith and Carl Johnson are on it. Andrea Perron, Roger Perron are on it as well. And there's some archival footage of Ed and Lorraine Warren on it as well. Joe, in closing, I want you to kind of leave us with a thought of overall of what you think of the farmhouse there in Harrisville. Do you think coming away from that haunting differently about the paranormal now and about the way you look at the paranormal? Is it in the way you look at hauntings? Does it change the way that you approach investigations?
That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Honestly, I don't want to I don't want to sound like a know-it-all or anything like that. Honestly, it did not. It actually, for me, reaffirmed that what I believe in and my approach is in line. And I feel like, and not just me, but the others who were involved, is that place, I think, is sort of, in a way, kind of confirmed what we have been thinking. I don't believe that it's the house that's haunted. I believe it's the land. But I believe that for whatever reason, the parents were the perfect people for this thing to basically torment.
Okay.
So that, again, that comes back to the person.
Yeah.
So now, I really want to look further into that, and that will happen in time.
Okay. This may seem like an odd question, but I'm going to leave this as our last question for today, and that's this. Have you ever felt more in danger in a paranormal investigation than this one?
I was comfortable there. I'll be honest. I was very comfortable. There is one particular location where I don't feel like I'm necessarily in danger, but it definitely raises my anxiety, which I'll go ahead and I'll put it out there. We are actually in pre-production. You're the first to know, to get it out there.
Well, thank you.
Well, we had said something, but this is the first for an interview. We are in pre-production for this particular location that I was saying, it raises my anxiety, and it'll be interesting.
Okay. Okay. Any hints as to where this location it might be?
It's in a state. It has 4 walls, a roof. It has some windows.
Okay, well, it's getting closer. I see. North, south, east, west?
North of me.
Okay, north of you.
Yep.
And you're in the south, so there you go. So,
excuse me.
That's narrowing it down a little bit.
Yeah, narrowing, yeah.
Okay, all right. Fair
Midwest,
enough. Midwest? Okay, okay. All right, that's fair. That's fair. Well, that's interesting. That's interesting because, when you're grounded, when you're skeptic, it's hard to rattle your cage or get you out of that comfort zone, I think, and get you to a point where you're feeling fear, because the first thing you're doing is debunking. I think when you're in a true skeptic zone.
Right.
I think when you're somewhat of a believer and you hear something, I think you tend to run a little bit away from it because you have a healthy respect for it, or think that, you know what, that whatever's in front of me probably doesn't have a healthy respect for you and is probably looking to hurt you. When you have a healthy skepticism, you run toward it. And the thing I see in this movie is there's a very healthy skepticism because you're running toward it because you want to debunk it, which is what I enjoyed about the movie, because there is a healthy dose of skepticism in this movie. So for that, I tip my cap to you, and I commend you for that, because that's something that you don't typically see on today's TV. On today's TV, there tends to be a healthy amount of running away from the issue, or jumping, or gasping, or whatever. The minute you guys come across something that comes across you, a bit of evidence, there's not a and running the other way. There's a lot of, right. Hey, did you hear that? Boom. And you're headed towards it. So right. I commend you for that.
I mean, we investigate. That's what we're supposed to do. When something happens, you don't run from it. You go to it. Yeah. And yeah, I do see that on some television shows. I see that a lot on a lot of YouTube channels that are paranormal. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I was always taught, hey, when something happens, go to it. Unless it's life-threatening, right? Go to it.
Yep. And you certainly do. The Harrisville Haunting, The Real Conjuring House is the name of the movie. Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Tubi, or Flex are some of the places you can go to. We've got a link in the description of this program that will get you to the outlets where you can watch this movie for free. I strongly encourage you folks, if you didn't watch it before today's program, go out and watch it. Joe Vitale's been our guest. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yes, it was definitely a lot of fun. We'll have you back on when you have that new project out, wherever it may be. All right. Thank you. Folks, want to thank you so much for joining us this week, and for tuning in to each and every show and supporting us here on Darkness Radio. We want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank HelloFresh. We want to thank Microdose Gummies. And of course, we want to thank Blue Chew for putting their money where their mouth is and supporting the show as well. We appreciate our sponsors for patronizing Darkness Radio and keeping us here on the air. And we want to thank you as well for, again, listening to the program and listening to each and every episode, and being our support and being the wind beneath our wings. I know I'm getting a little goomy on you right there. Want to encourage you to go out and help your fellow man this weekend, or your fellow woman this weekend. A lot of snow around the country, folks. A lot of stuff going on where people are getting buried under snow. If you can, go out and help a neighbor shovel out their driveway or blow out their driveway, or simply if you see somebody out there who might need a helping hand, maybe they need a coat, maybe they need a hat or some mittens, or they might need maybe $5 to get something to eat. Just help your fellow man this weekend. Do a little something to give somebody a hand up this weekend and help them out. Just a little bit of advice, or a little bit of a tip from your buddy here, Timmy at Darkness Radio. For Mally Fox, for Beer City Bruiser, for Jessica Freeberg, I'm Tim Dennis. Go out and have some fun this weekend. Take care of yourself and each other. We'll see you next week here on the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio.